Man, the national media having a field day with the Lions. Are they now a top 10 team in the NFL? What planet am I on?
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's America's team. It's Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network on a Wednesday, December 14th and a Thursday, December 15th. Matt Dery with you. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day right here on this very podcast. Lions and Jets coming up Sunday, 1 o'clock from the Meadowlands, MetLife Stadium, where the Lions just a couple of weeks ago knocked off the Giants, going back to the same stadium, this time to take on the Jets. They'll have a new backup quarterback this weekend. We will tell you about that coming up. Also, speaking of backup QBs, let me apologize for something I said back in August about the Lions backup quarterback situation and tell you where one of them is now going. We'll get into that coming up momentarily. Isaiah Buggs, snubbed or not? We will talk about that. Defensive Rookie of the Year might come down to this weekend. That's a discussion we'll get into. And also NFL.com's power rankings. I can't even believe it. The Lions cracked the top 10. Yes, I'm not kidding. We will talk about that as well on the show today. Locked On Lions is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered with this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. You can follow me on Twitter at Dery Speaks, at Locked On Lions on Twitter as well, the Matt Dery Facebook fan page. And of course, you are watching us, some of you at least, on the Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Hop in the comments. I'll catch you in the comments, as Pete McGrath from Savills in Detroit once said, or says many times on his LinkedIn page. Shout out to Pete. If anybody knows Pete McGrath, he's a great man. And he always says, catch you in the comments on his LinkedIn videos. So if you want to put comments out there, you can do that as well right here on the YouTube page. All right, where to start? So today I get a text message from my friend Al, P1 listener. He says, look, I'm watching NFL Network and the Lions have made the top 10 for the rankings, for power rankings. And I said, top 10 in the NFC? He said, no. Top 10 in the NFL. So I went to my trusty phone and I had to look this up because I was running around doing stuff today. And lo and behold, Dan Hanzus, Hanzus, weekly power rankings, week 15 at NFL.com. And he even wrote the top 10 is getting weird again. All right. Now, the Lions have won 5 of 6. Big game on Sunday against the Jets. They're excited. They feel good. They're in the playoff picture, all of these things. So his power rankings are as follows. Philadelphia, number 1. San Francisco, number 2. The Bengals, number 3. The Bills, 4th. Chiefs, 5th. Cowboys, 6th. Vikings, 7th, fresh off their L to the Lions. Baltimore, 8. Chargers, 9. Up from 18th. And then the Lions at number 10. The Lions? A top 10 team in the NFL? Look, I swear. Can you see that? Lions, number 10. Like, previous rank number 17. Dan writes, quote, these Lions are for real. Dan Campbell's team continued to roll the opposition on Sunday, this time piling up 464 yards on the NFC North leading Vikings in a 34-23 win at raucous Ford Field. The offense is led by Jared Goff, blah, blah, blah. Stiff test this week against the Jets. If this offense proves it can travel against a tough defense and the elements, we'll be talking about a playoff team in Detroit come January. So this guy, Dan, he's got the Lions ahead of Miami, who, of course, the Lions lost to. He's got the Lions ahead of the Jets, who they're going to play this weekend. New England, who the Lions lost to. The Commanders, who are 14. Tennessee dropping like a stone. Seattle, who the Lions lost to. Jacksonville, and others. All right, and we know the league isn't very good. it's down. But the Lions cracking the top 10. 10. Not just in the NFC. No. Top 10 in the NFL. Now, this is one set of power rankings. This is not the Bible. This is not the Constitution. But my goodness gracious. Talk about a rise from the ashes. Talk about a team that is just trending so upward that now you have national writers on the league's own website putting the Lions ahead of teams like Miami, who everybody is saying is the greatest offense in the world, and Tua and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek. I mean, the Lions ahead of the Dolphins? The Dolphins smoked the Lions a few weeks ago at Ford Field. So people are on board, and people are looking at the NFC and seeing the NFC South being so bad. All right, they're looking at the NFC North as being really bad. We mentioned yesterday, my buddy Michael Spath brought this up to me today via text about the Vikings being frauds. 10-3 team, people are calling them frauds. Lions are moving up. And next stop would be hopefully a playoff berth this season. I'm not calling for it. I'm not telling you I think it's a lock, but man, this is what we've been waiting for. Meaningful games here in December and a buzz around the league about this football team and players getting better. So there it is. NFL.com power rankings have the Lions at number 10 in the league. Amazing. You never thought you would see the day that teams like Pittsburgh, New England, who are always, highfalutin, high-ranked, highly thought of, Oregon, Tennessee, every year they win. And right now, Dan Hansis from NFL.com has the Lions ahead of those teams in the, classification in the NFL. Now, again, if the Lions were in the NFC South, they'd be like running away with a division. All right, there's a lot of shaky teams out there. Look at the Arizona Cardinals. All right, D-Hop and Murray and all these guys. Everybody said, "Oh, Cardinals are going to come back this year." They've got 4 wins, and now Kyler Murray's out for the year. And oh, by the way, I apologize. I made way too much out of the backup quarterback position at the start of the season. I did too many shows about it. I talked too much about it. Tim Boyle, gone. David Blau, gone. And now, I know Nate Sudfeld is there, but David Blau today just got picked up by Arizona off the Vikings practice squad. He's the backup now to Colt McCoy. Who knew? David Blau may get into a game. Never played a single down for the Minnesota Vikings. And I was up in arms about how they treated him and how they didn't, do the backup quarterback position right. Look, Jared Goff staying healthy. It's just been really, really good. Coming up next, who might win the Defensive Rookie of the Year award could come down to this Sunday. I will explain coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. But first, this episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. That's why you'll be able to find a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, available right now as a bonus episode on Locked On Presents. Think Like a Champion, a brand new podcast from the very popular Russell Wilson and Audible. Russ is a champion on the field, but off of it, we rarely know the grind on the path to greatness. Hear from 2-time Super Bowl champ and MVP Von Miller on the show. What about Tim Tebow? He discusses how to find your unique personal mission in the world. Each episode features interviews with Olympic medalists, NFL stars, and even business leaders. Head over to Locked On Presents for a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, or catch the full series available anywhere you get your podcasts, available anywhere, everywhere now. Audible, get in the game. And hey, we got to tell you about our friends. We love them. We appreciate them at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You don't want that. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates out there. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster, and it's free. All right? Throw that purple hashtag up there, hiring, up on your job post. hiring frame right there on your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are looking for people and hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you want to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, so this weekend, big game, Lions at the 7-6 Jets. Jets, Jets. Robert Saleh, the Dearborn native, going up against his hometown team, of course. And he's done a great job in his second year with the New York Jets. Jets, of course, will have Mike White at quarterback, and everybody's talked about Garrett Wilson on the offensive side and everything else. But their defense, the Jets' defense, has been really, really good. And it's been led by a man who was a top 10 pick in Ahmad Sauce Gardner, the cornerback who's from Detroit and has been just excellent for that Jets team. And many people think, and this includes Daniel Jeremiah, also at NFL.com, Move the Sticks. He talked to this week in his column about the Defensive Rookie of the Year. And he's got Sauce Gardner ranked number 1 and the leader in the clubhouse to win the award. He was picked 4th overall out of Cincinnati, of course. Gardner's already, quote, established himself as a premier player in the NFL. He shut down some of the league's top wide receivers. Next up on his list for Defensive Rookie of the Year is Tariq Woolen, the safety from the Seattle Seahawks, who has had a really good season. Hang on, I got to fix something here on my other computer. Woolen has had a really good season for the Seahawks, including, of course, his pick 6 against Jared Goff earlier this year when the Seahawks beat the Lions. Woolen's a safety, not a cornerback. 5th round pick, 153rd overall. He's been the most productive defender in this class. He's tied for the league lead with 6 interceptions, which stands out. Then after that, Aiden Hutchinson of your Detroit Lions. Daniel Jeremiah writes, quote, Hutchinson makes at least 1 or 2 impact plays every week. He leads all rookies in sacks with 7 heading into week 15. Here we go, folks. This game on Sunday means a lot for the Lions and their playoff chances and just keeping it going. But it also means on the biggest stage, New York City, all right, where the New York audience will be watching, voters will be watching, league people will be watching. Here's Aiden Hutchinson coming in with 7 sacks. And oh, by the way, 2 interceptions, the same amount that Sauce Gardner has. All right, now, you don't judge cornerbacks on just INTs. Remember, Darius Slay was having a great years, but dropping interceptions. But could Sunday's game be the deciding factor for Defensive Rookie of the Year? Now, Jeremiah says Hutchinson's the 3rd best. But if he has a breakout game Sunday, he plays really, really well. Maybe a pick, fumble recovery, couple of sacks, whatever it is. And if Aiden Hutchinson can get to 10 sacks and the Lions can make the playoffs, that will be huge for him. But it starts this weekend. What if the Lions pick on Sauce Gardner a little bit? What if Sauce Gardner has a subpar game against Amon-Ra St. Brown and the rest of the Lions wide receivers, and Hutch plays well? Could be the opposite. All right. We've seen some games where Aiden's been quiet. We haven't heard his name much. And what if Gardner gets an INT or has a couple of pass breakups, PBUs against Jared Goff? Sunday not only could be a game that the Lions need to win, but it's also for little bragging rights individually. Gardner versus Hutch. Now, today the media asked Dan Campbell about Sauce Gardner and if the Lions thought about using the number 2 pick on the Detroit native and former Cincinnati Bearcat cornerback. Campbell was very, very upfront and honest and said, no, we were looking at edge rushers. We were looking at D-line, and not really at cornerback that high. But Sauce has been tremendous for the Jets. So let's see. This weekend, that's another sidebar to kind of watch and pay attention to is the matchup between the Lions receivers and Gardner. And John Butchko from Locked On Jets is going to join me tomorrow for the crossover. Ian Eagle, legendary CBS play-by-play man who will be on the call with Charles Davis on Sunday on CBS. He's going to join us on Friday, and we'll ask both those guys about Sauce Gardner, just what has made him so good. But really, nobody has been able to limit or shut down Amon-Ra St. Brown. All right, he didn't have a huge game last week, but a guy like DJ Chark caught the deep ball, had a big game. Jameson Williams, of course, caught the deep pass for a touchdown. But what will be interesting to see is how, if they put Gardner in the slot against St. Brown, do they have him just follow Amon-Ra around, or see me playing left, right corner, out by the sideline, whatever, out wide? That will be something to watch. But Aiden Hutchinson against the Jets O-line, I like that matchup. If you watched last weekend, Mike White got decapitated a couple times by the Bills. He had to leave the game twice, I believe, with the rib injuries. I mean, Buffalo just destroyed White this weekend. And oh, by the way, and I promised you this earlier, if Mike White gets hurt this weekend, Joe Flacco will not be the backup quarterback. Robert Saleh has announced that Zach Wilson, who was benched, the Golden Boy, benched a couple of weeks ago, kicked to the curb to the third string even, behind Mike White and Joe Flacco, will be the backup quarterback Sunday against the Lions, which I find very, very interesting. Because if something happens to Mike White and they put Zach Wilson in the game, that's huge for the Lions. I'm not saying Joe Flacco, still at age 55 or whatever he is any good either. But Zach Wilson has been a major disappointment since being, a top 2 pick in the draft. And, teammates all love Mike White. They've rallied around him. They're wearing T-shirts talking about him. This is going to be a very, very tough game Sunday for the Lions, because White is gritty and tough, delivers the football pretty well. Garrett Wilson's having a big year, the rookie wide receiver from Ohio State. But last weekend against Buffalo, the Jets had a big problem keeping White upright. The Lions have got to take advantage of that this week, hopefully, as well. And check out that film and see what the Bills did right. All right, what about BetOnline.net, your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis? Go on BetOnline.net right now and look up and see. It's back to a pick'em. The spread for the Lions and Jets on Sunday. You want to get all the odds and the trends for every pro sport, amateur league out there as well. From pro football to college bowl season to basketball and World Cup, they've got it all at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those as well at BetOnline. We are the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so there was some talk this week that Isaiah Buggs, who of course forced a fumble on Sunday, had a really good game for the Lions, got a game ball from Dan Campbell. There was some talk that Isaiah Buggs should have been Defensive Player of the Week in the NFC for just wreaking so much havoc in the backfield of the Vikings this past Sunday. Turns out that a Detroiter, actually, Brandon Graham, the pride of Detroit Crockett High School, which is no longer, it's now East English, but Brandon Graham of the Eagles ended up winning the Defensive Player of the Week award in the NFC. So shout out to Brandon Graham, was a great guy, and of course former Michigan Wolverine. But the fact that Isaiah Buggs is getting some love and the people are talking about number 96 a little bit is such a nice move and accomplishment for a guy like Brad Holmes, the Lions general manager. Now, I said the other day Isaiah Buggs was undrafted. He was actually drafted in the 6th round a couple of years ago out of Alabama. He was in Pittsburgh, I believe, in the Raiders practice squad. He's found a home here, and that's a nice pickup by Brad Holmes. This team has been in need of some defensive linemen. And what was once considered probably the weak spot of the defense, not named guy, when a Romeo Okwara was hurt and Josh Paschal was out, and you looked up and you said, man, Aleem McNeil not doing much. Levi Onwuzurike's been out and been injured. John Kaminsky, kind of a throwaway guy from the Falcons. Kaminsky's been great. Buggs has been really good. Hutchinson is living up to the billing. Austin Bryant flashes once in a while. Aleem McNeil has had some really big games, including the game in New York against the Giants. James Houston coming off the edge is like a sack a week guy as a rookie. All of a sudden, the Lions, and give Todd Wash, we talk about Hank Fraley all the time, the Lions offensive line coach. What about Todd Wash running that D line? He's done a really nice job. Bugs up for Defensive Player of the Week. John Kaminsky, the commish, making plays, playing inside, playing outside. We saw Josh Paschal in the first game that he played. The D-line all of a sudden is starting to come together. And some guys are starting to play really, really well. So shout out to Todd Wash and certainly Bugs. Didn't get the award this week, but definitely was in consideration. All right, tomorrow, John Butchko from Locked On Jets. Friday, Ian Eagle will do a Friday show, as well as he'll be on the call for New York and Detroit coming up on Sunday. What a week it has been. And we continue to talk about your Detroit Lions right here on Locked On Lions. Thanks, everybody.